Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to episode 84 of Talking Asperger's with Andrew. My name's Andrew Martian. I'm autistic. My representation of autism, if you want to call it that, is Asperger's syndrome, or in the the new terminology, it's type 1 autism, which I don't particularly like. I prefer to say that I have autism, Asperger's syndrome, but some people refer to themselves in different ways, and that's absolutely fine, whatever feels right to them. And I used to be a geologist. I had a successful career as a geologist, always knowing that I was different, but not knowing why. Until 8 years ago, when I got my diagnosis of Asperger's syndrome, and everything started to fit into place. Why I behaved in certain ways, why other people behaved in certain ways around me or with me or to me, and some of that wasn't particularly pleasant. So I now work with employers to help them better manage people like me, thinking, well, if I was starting again at work, how would I, knowing that I have Asperger's, how would I like to be managed? How would I want to encourage and speak to my employer about how to get the best out of me? Because ultimately, that's the aim of the game, is to have happy employees who are doing productive and efficient work so that the business thrives and the employee feels valued. Today's topic is probably the most important part of my 7 Steps program for managing Asperger's syndrome in the workplace. It's really, really important. And I can't really understate that. It really is important. And it's called the safe space. You're thinking, what does a safe space mean? Well, it's kind of like it does what it says on the tin. It's somewhere where someone who, they don't have to be autistic. It could be someone who's got mental health issues, or they may be stressed, or they may have other challenges going on. But it works very well for autistic people, people with Asperger's syndrome, where they can go and get away from whatever it is that is going on around their office that is causing them to get anxious and tense and agitated and feeling though if they can't get away, they're going to explode. There's going to be a meltdown. There's going to be a vocal outburst, a physical outburst to something or someone, some external stimulus that is causing them to get, I got to get away from this, otherwise I'm going to blow up. That's what the safe space is for. Some bigger companies have something called breakout areas, which can be great safe spaces, but some of them have big noisy televisions in them where people can sit and have a cup of tea, and there's this massive big TV on with whatever video playing things that they have going on. That's not what a safe space is. A safe space is somewhere quiet, preferably with soft furnishings, preferably with low neutral and pastel colors rather than bright, shiny light. Have blinds, have low lighting, things that are low stimulus to people who are sensitive to light, to noise, to smells, to textures, to surfaces. Have it so that someone who is at the point of, if I don't get away soon, I'm going to blow up and it's not going to be pretty and I won't have any control over it whatsoever. They can go and get away. They can get themselves a cup of tea, cup of coffee, drink of water, and they can sit there and relax. Preferably on their own, because the last thing they really need is someone saying, oh, hi, you're in the breakout room today. How's it going with you in your department? Just leave me alone. Let me calm down. Let me deal with this in my own way. And the phrase that we sometimes use is decompress. Let us decompress. It's a bit like deep sea divers. They have to come up slowly and then they decompress when they come out. They have to take time to readjust to normal atmosphere. Well, we have to adjust so that we can go back to our normal place of work and be productive and efficient. So the safe space is that place. Now, it doesn't always have to be big and fancy and super. It might just be that the area at the back of the archive area where you can stick a desk, a small table and a chair, that might be fine. That might be all it's needed, is that the person can go and sit there, calm down. No one's going to pester them. And then they've had their 10 or 15 minutes and they can come back to work, feel invigorated and be able to face whatever it was that they had to get away from. Maybe that's diluted and distilled itself down and become less of a threat to them by being away from it. And then they come back and they can perhaps get on and hopefully get back on with their work. There's a few things that we have to say about the safe space. Obviously, you're all sitting there thinking, Health and safety. Yes, health and safety is important. So there has to be a mechanism to tell your boss that you've gone to your safe space. And it absolutely, this is really, really important. You must have trust for that, so that the last thing that you have to do, or you're going to want to do when you're getting ready to, I've got to get away, otherwise I'm going to blow up, is to go and ask permission from someone. Because it's quite possible that that very person you've got to ask permission from is the person that's just overloaded you with more work or criticized what you've done. No. Have an agreed signal with management. Simplest thing is put your hole punch or your stapler in the middle of your desk. So when the boss comes out and goes, oh, Andrew's not at his desk at the moment. His hole punch is there. He's gone to the safe space. So if there is an emergency evacuation from a fire or any other emergency where the building needs to be evacuated, you will know where to find that person if they haven't been found at the rendezvous point. Or you can tell the firefighters where that person is likely to be because they were in that place. That's their safe space. So it's on this floor, this door, this corridor, that door, so that the emergency service know where to find them if they need to go and look for them, so that they're not putting themselves at greater risk to try and find you. But you can be found because they know where you've gone. So don't belittle that health and safety thing, because there may come a time when that could be important. So have that system in place where you've agreed with your boss, your line manager, your supervisor, whatever it is. When I've got my hole punch or my stapler or both of them in the middle of my desk, I've gone to my safe space. Please don't come running after me. Don't send someone for me. Trust me to come back when I am ready to come back, and I will get on with my work. Have the conversation in normal time with the boss about how you're going to make up that time. And if you're sitting there thinking, oh, we can't accommodate that, people being off work 15 minutes twice a day, it's probably not going to be that. But you will be accommodating people who smoke by going and standing out, by they going and standing outside and having fag breaks for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day. You accommodate that so you can accommodate this. Just say to the person, have an agreed way where they say, look, gone to my safe space today. I can't really face staying late tonight, but if I'm feeling up to it, I'll stay late tomorrow night and make up the time. That's all you need to do. Don't have an inquisition. Don't sit there and go, you were at your safe space twice today, and bam, bam. That defeats the whole purpose. You have got to be sympathetic and understanding as a leader and not a micromanager to accept that this person has gone to their safe space to calm down, to decompress, to be able to refocus so that they can come and get back on with their work as soon as they get back to their workstation. So it's really, really important that you understand why you have the safe space and how it works. Really can't stress that enough. And it is such a valuable strategy, a tool that an employer can use. And it doesn't have to be someone who has Asperger's or autism. As I said earlier, it could be someone who has they could be having a family situation. They could recently have split from their partner and they're very stressed and they've got to worry about the kids and all of these things. And they might just need to take 10 minutes away. Look, I just need to go sit down, calm down. Because the alternative is that they go, I can't cope with this. I'm going to be off work. I'll go to my doctor. They'll sign me off and I'll be off for 2 weeks or a month. That doesn't serve anyone. It doesn't serve the employee, because their pay is going to be reduced. It's just mounting. They're going to get stressed by the amount of work they haven't done. It doesn't serve the employer because there's someone not being productive. So what would you rather have as an employer? Someone who maybe twice a week has 10 or 15 minutes twice in the safe space, or they're not there for a month and they've got a doctor's note saying that they're unfit for work. You can't do anything about that. What would you rather have? Managing someone who is trying to be at work, trying to be productive, trying to do what you've asked them to do, but they just need a bit of a timeout. They need a timeout for 10 or 15 minutes once or twice a week. You accommodate that. as a reasonable, responsible employer, you should accommodate that because you would have set in advance how you're going to deal with it, what the signal is, how you're going to make up the time, and all of those things. Not difficult things to resolve. It's a straightforward conversation between you, your line manager, and probably someone in human resources. So, yep, okay, we're sorted. That's an accommodation that we are going to do for you so that you can be productive and work in our business. That's what a responsible employer would do. They would say, yep, understand that. We can accommodate that. That's how we're going to deal with it. And nothing more need be said. Nothing more need be said. The boss doesn't need to be going, oh, I noticed you're at your safe space twice this week. I really needed you to knuckle down and crack on with this. Please don't do that. Your job as an employer, whether you think this is your job or not, but your job as an employer, as a manager of a team, is to get the best out of each and every one of your staff. Agreed? Yes? You want them to be productive, to do efficient, good work efficiently, productively, and so on. So what that means is you need to potentially adjust how you manage everyone in your team so that they can be at their best. That means that you might need to manage Andrew, who has Asperger's, in a different way from the way you manage Leslie, who doesn't. That's your job to adjust your management style so that you can make sure that everyone works at their efficient best. It's not one size fits all. You've got your stopwatch, you've got your time, you've got your clock, you've got your clipboard. You were a minute late coming forward. I'm going to write you up and dock you half an hour. Please don't do that. If you're having continual issues with lateness or tardiness, take them up with the appropriate person, with a HR representative there, and say, we've noticed over the last month or 6 weeks that you're pushing the start time a little bit. Is there something we can do to accommodate that? Is there something we can do to help? Is there a reason behind that? And it might be, yeah, I'm having real difficulties at the moment with my wife's just had a kid and up half the night, and all the perfectly reasonable reasons why someone might not be as punctual to start first thing in the morning. You say, okay, fine, we accept that. Maybe every now and then you can just stick around an extra half an hour just to make up the time. Yes, no problem, fine. End of story. Because you want your employees to understand that you build a relationship with them as to how you're going to work, how they're going to accommodate their little traits and their characteristics and the odd thing that happens. Because if you're going to jump on people for being a minute late here and a minute late there, and you were too long in the toilet, and your cigarette break was 4 minutes longer than everyone else in the department, quite how you'd know that it's a little scary if you're sitting there with a stopwatch and a clipboard. Be sensible, be reasonable. If there's a trend that's happening, find out why that is happening, rather than coming down heavily with them, with the HR mode. You're getting written up, you're getting a final warning. Try to find out why these things are happening and try to support a strategy that you can deal with together to manage that. And if that means once a week that person stays behind for half an hour or an hour to make up all these little odds and sods of time, that's what you do. If that fits in with the model of the business, and it usually does, usually able to, then accommodate that. Like I said before, you manage and you accommodate people who go and have cigarettes 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day for 5, 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes at a pop. Well, 6 fag breaks at 15 minutes a pop is an hour and a half. Is everyone who's having 6 cigarette breaks staying behind an hour and a half every day to make up the time that they have having a cigarette break? I suspect not. How do you manage that? If you could accommodate that and manage that, you can manage someone who needs to go to their safe space or has um, has started to be a little bit late coming in for work every now and then. It might just be That the bus schedule has changed. Now, you're going to sit there and say to me, yeah, well, tell them to get up 10 minutes early to catch the bus. Yes, absolutely. But we live in the real world. Okay, so let's be reasonable and practicable about what you're asking your employees to do. Because if you're going to rule with a rod of iron, I can guarantee you what will happen. Your best people will stick it around for a wee while, and then one day they'll wake up and they'll have been reprimanded for something. And you know, they'll be sitting there at lunchtime or at tea break or on the bus home or when they're driving home. And do you know what? They'll say, do you know what? I don't need this. I don't need this. I'm going to go looking for another job. They polish up their CV and they go looking for another job. And that happens to your best people first. They leave first. So what you're left with is your less productive people. Your productivity goes down. Your mood and morale goes down because people keep leaving. I worked for a multidisciplinary consulting engineer when I was a geologist, and in the space of about 18 months, 9 or 10 people left. 9 or 10 people. One of them was quite a senior level, left, went elsewhere. One or two, natural progression, when you've got a department of 30 people, natural progression is some people will jump ship to get promoted and move up if they're not feeling they're getting rewarded where they are. Absolutely. 9 or 10 people over 18 months. Gonna have to think about that. Maybe there's something in your structure. Maybe there's something in how you're managing your teams. Maybe there's something about the personnel involved in the senior levels in managing your teams that is causing people to go, you know what? I don't need this. I don't need this hassle, this grief, this uh, atmosphere at work. There's other places out there. I'm going to go and look and see what I can get. And more than likely, they'll get a pay rise. Quite possibly, they'll get a promotion. And they leave. When someone leaves an industry like that, it costs a lot of money to replace them. Replacing a principal engineer who's got minimum of 15 years experience and they're chartered and all the rest of it, that is not a 5-minute exercise to replace someone like that caliber. It's going to cost you in time for your directors and your staff to look at CVs and HR to look at CVs and select people. That is time. That's costing your managers and your directors time to review all those CVs and send out letters, send out emails. All of that adds up. Then you have a round of interviews. For a senior position, you might have more than one interview. And who's going to be at the interview? A director, senior manager. Well, director or senior manager for a 2-hour interview, £400 easily in lost fees. That starts to add up when you're interviewing 3 people or 4 people. Think about it. Keep the good people by accommodating their little ticks and idiosyncrasies, having the safe space and having that work efficiently. You will then keep the people who you want to keep. Reward them. Look after them. Because there is virtually no cost to having a safe space. Okay, the setting up of the space might be a few £100 for some soft furnishings and a coffee machine and bits and bobs. But in the grand scheme of things, the cost of setting up a safe space is probably less than one employer being off work for a month because they can't cope with the stress of the work that they are doing and working in that environment. Which would you rather have? Would you rather spend the money on the safe space, or would you rather overload your staff that you currently have because 1 or 2 or more people are off work because of stress? And your autistic people can't cope with it because they not have any release valve where they can get away, decompress, and then come back to work. Doesn't take much to realize that setting up of a safe space is a very cost-effective way of keeping the mental state of your employees at the right level so that they can be productive and efficient. Excuse me just a moment. And I'm not the only one saying this. A number of people who do what I do, Asperger's, neurodivergency talkers, speakers and coaches and mentors, I've seen some of the other people who do this. They all have a safe space. It might be called a different thing. It might be called whatever. Doesn't matter what you call it. Let's not worry about the label. What does it do? And does it work well? Is it efficient? Do we understand how it works? Do we understand why we need it? Do we understand how to manage those people who use it? That's not difficult to do. That really isn't difficult to do. Try it. If you're an employer and you're watching this thinking, who is this Andrew Marsh guy? What's he talking about? This safe space. We don't need that. Everyone's fine in our place. Well, maybe they're not. You might have neurodivergent people in your teams who are struggling because they can't get a release valve. And you will find that they might sneak out and go for a little walk around the block every now and then. Maybe they do. And that is also another way to manage the situation that we're talking about. It could just be that person just needs to go and have a walk around the block for 10 minutes. Let them do it. So long as someone knows that they have gone, so that in the event of a health and safety system, blah, 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 not difficult to manage. The flip side of that is if you're continually bombarding your teams with contradictions and changes, you're going to drive the stress levels of your teams up and up and up. And the people that will suffer most are your neurotypical people, neurodivergent people, are people who are having depression. There are people who are have stress-related difficulties and challenges. There are people who have chronic fatigue syndrome, and if they get lumbered and overloaded too much, they're just going to be off work. And if someone has got chronic fatigue syndrome and they are pushed to the breaking point, they won't be off work for a couple of days. They won't be off work for a couple of months. They could be off work for 6 months, 9 months, a year, because they've been so stressed out. They have gone beyond burnout. They are literally shells of their former selves because they have been burnt out and they have nothing left to give. They have nothing left to give. And you can't pop a pill, go and sit at home or have a day out at the beach and think, yeah, great, sorted, I'm fine. It doesn't work like that. People have mental health challenges, can't get over these things in half a day or a day. So don't overload them. Manage them well, manage them efficiently, manage them sympathetically so that you can get the best from them. Because, and I keep saying this, but your job as an employer is to make money. Service your clients, service your customers, make money so that you can pay your overheads, you can pay your staff, you can pay your suppliers, you can pay your raw materials, and have something left over to pay your directors and share within the employment, in your teams, your people that are working for you. And to do that well, you need to make sure that all of your people are working productively, efficiently, and effectively. So if everyone's working at 90%, they're doing really great work, yeah, you bet you let them go to their safe space once or twice a week. Because if not, their productivity is not going to go down to 85%. It's going to go down to 30% or 20%, or I can't cope with this anymore percent, and they're off on sick. What would you rather have? Someone at 90% who occasionally drops down to 85, or someone who plummets off the cliff to 20% efficiency? To make money in business, you have to look after your people, your employees. Richard Branson is famous for saying, look after your employees first. I think I've got to try and remember it. It's something like train them well enough so that they can leave, look after them well enough so that they don't. He says something like that. So in other words, look after them, train them, Give them the incentives, give them the rewards so that they, once they're trained and incentivized and rewarded, they're enjoying their time there. They're happy. They're getting the rewards. They say, I'm going to stay, rather than get the training. This isn't working for me. Here, I've got the training. Yeah, great. Well, I'll go and take it to another company down the road. There's 6 more companies that do exactly this in the same town or city where I work. I'll go and work for one of them and I'll get a 15% pay rise for going. Is that what you want? Losing your good people? Look after your people. Have the safe space. Be sympathetic. Yes, there may come a time where you have to pick them up about certain things, but do that sympathetically. Do that compassionately, so that they stay, so that the good ones stay. Because if the good ones leave, you're left with the less than good ones, and you're trying to make do. And they're going to get overloaded because the good one's gone, the productive one's gone. So more work's going to go on to those that are left. You can't get caught into a pint pot. There's only so much you can get out of an employee. Just by dumping more work on them means it doesn't get done. Or they get it all done. But it's such a dreadful job, and there's mistakes and there's errors, doesn't represent the company's reputation. You're going to go downhill fast if you overload people to the point where they can either do 2 things well that represents the reputation that you've built up over 20, 30, 50, 100 years, or they do 4 things badly and your reputation plummets and you can't get it back. You can't, when your reputation has gone off the cliff because you're overstretching your staff, you're not looking after them, you're not supporting them, you didn't have enough staff, you can't get that reputation back. That will take you 20 years to recover, if you ever do. So these little things that I talk about in my 7 steps program, my strategies for managing Asperger's syndrome at work, they are very cost effective. They're virtually no cost to them. Okay, setting up the safe space might have a little bit of cost to it, but the rest is common sense from someone who has worked in industry. I've worked in the construction industry for 23 years before I knew I had Asperger's, but I always knew I was different. I did things differently. I thought differently. I would be asked questions about, oh, how did you come up with that, Andrew? That's a good idea. Because I looked at things in a different way. And if to get that result, they had to accommodate me slightly differently because I have Asperger's, then you do that. You allow that. Maybe the workspace that they're in, you allow them to decorate it within reason. If they like their little stuffed toy next to their desk, next to their computer, let them have it. Because what you do when you come around and say, oh, you can't have that stuffed toy and that doesn't comply, and that, they're just going to go, do you know what? Oh, I don't need this. Don't need this hassle. I want to work somewhere where I'm appreciated and valued. And if that means I've got a stuffed toy on my desk, so be it. And if you bring a client round, say, yep, that's my stuffed toy. I like it there. They'll say, good for you. Client's not going to turn around and say, oh, can't work for these people because one of your employees has got a stuffed toy in his desk, or he's got a lump of rock. Here you are. That's one of my medicine stones. It's a painted rock. I painted it. It's next to my desk. There's an almost spherical lump of rock that I collected. It's next to my desk. I like having it there. That's what it takes to get someone to feel as though they're valued because they've got their lump of rock or their crystal, or they've got a pendulum, or they've got a stuffed toy, or they've got whatever. As long as they're not covering their desk with erroneous stuff that doesn't look tidy, let them have their little bits and bobs. It makes them feel as though you care about them. I'm getting off topic on safe space, but it's about setting the right environment. And part of that environment is accepting that some people use the safe space to decompress, calm down, and get back to work and then be efficient. And I bet you I bet you, if you set up a safe space for your autistic employees or your neurodivergent employees, I bet you after 6 months or a year and you monitored it in the right way, you had a survey after a year among your staff said, how many of you used a safe space? I bet you will have more people who are neurodivergent using it just because they felt like they needed to get away from the stress of what's happening in their workspace, in their area, as well as the neurodivergent people. You will have neurotypical people using it just as much as neurodivergent people because it's somewhere where they go, do you know what? That was an intense meeting I had with my boss and the client. I just need to go and sit somewhere for 10 minutes. Guarantee you that'll happen. What's the phrase? If you build it, they will come. It's like the M25. They did all the studies, they did all the traffic counts and the traffic models and all the rest of it. They built the M25, and guess what? Way more cars used it. Way more people used the M25 that it was designed for, which is why they're always having to widen it within the same land. So that engineering challenges everywhere because they built something and everyone went, oh, that's a good idea. I can go from A to B, do my 15-mile section on the 3 junctions on the M25. Boom, I can get there quicker. Probably can't now because it's so stuffed with traffic, but they built it for a certain capacity of traffic users from their models and their traffic counts and all the studies they've done. Boom, they built it when it was all connected up, wallop. Way more people used it. I can guarantee you, if you have a safe space and you let people know that there's a safe space where they can go and decompress for 10 or 15 minutes, and you can manage that within your teams and all the things that I've said earlier, you will find more people using it. And you will probably find they're going, this is great. This is great. Thank you. Make up the time. I'll make up my time that I've used safe space. I'll do mine on Thursday afternoon, or I'll come into work early on Wednesday morning. Job done. Doesn't need lots of paperwork, doesn't need lots of monitoring, doesn't need people with clipboards and stopwatches, and you don't have, but please do not have a signing in sheet for your safe space. Oh no, what a horrific thought. Please don't have a signing in sheet. What time did you get here? What time did you leave? Oh no, please don't do that. Please don't do that. Build the trust with your employees that they will make up the time. The vast majority will do it without thinking anything of it. They say, yep, okay, deal with that. Just like you deal with the people who go out and smoke. You accommodate that, accommodate a safe space. And I guarantee you, you will have better, more productive people. And those people that have been on the edge, their stress levels will come down just a little bit, or just enough so that they can be productive. Try it. Safe space. Great thing to do. If you want more tips on my 7 steps program or any other techniques or strategies that you want to know about as to how to manage Asperger's syndrome in the workplace better, or indeed just to have a conversation with me about whether we're a fit and whether we could work together, I'm quite happily, I'll be welcome to have an opportunity to have a 30-minute free consultation, no obligation, to have a chat with me about how I can help you manage people with Asperger's syndrome in your business. Love to do that. Welcome the opportunity to do that. We will just have a conversation, just like I'm having a conversation with the screen talking to you now. We'll have a conversation. How are you doing with what you do? What challenges do you have? Have you thought about doing X, Y, and Z? Simple as that. We'll see whether we can work together, and I'd welcome that opportunity. If you want to know more about managing Asperger's syndrome in the workplace, you can get me on my that used the wrong finger again. There we go. Aspergersmatters.com is my website. There's a contact form on there, or you can email me at andrew@aspergersmatters.com. My name's Andrew Marsh. I'm autistic. I have Asperger's syndrome. And I've fathomed out some ways to help better manage people like me, potentially in your business. So please get in touch. I'd love to be able to help because I've been that person who didn't fit in business and wondered how on earth I could do better and how my employer could help me do better if only they had been more reasonable in how they managed me. Now that I know why, because I have Asperger's, it's even more important to understand how to get the best from them, because they could be your star employees. They could be the ones who fathom out the problem, the solution to the long-standing problem that you've got in your business, or something that always takes longer than you thought, they might have the solution to that. So that's me for today. Take a look out on tomorrow afternoon when I'll be posting this on the website, on my YouTube channel, rather, and take a look out on Friday or Saturday afternoon for what next week's topic will be. I have a pretty good idea what it'll be, but I will be posting that on LinkedIn, so keep a lookout for that. But until then, take care, look after yourselves, and save space. Worth doing. Take care.